Top of the middle of the day to you, ladies and gentlemen. We're at the bench in the shop for another little narrative session. We're going to talk about the Max Flow air cleaner system. Throwing the disclaimers out right off the bat. This is a narrative. I'm only human. I make mistakes in this process. Check the description for any clarifications, qualifications, or corrections. I try to use that area to get to the bottom of when I make mistakes, and my contact information is generally in there as well. If a person was to try to use the winter element inside of the foam filter for the Max Flow system, a guy has to keep in mind there's quite a bit of a differential between the contact surface on the filter base or the carb box cover. You can see it has it's kind of a rubberized little sealing surface, similar to what you see in a crank seal. It hits in two different places. This is completely flat and smooth, so a guy doesn't want to max torque the nut down because you're driving this area into the back of the foam element. You want it snug, but you don't want it applied in a super forceful manner, I wouldn't think. I don't necessarily tweak them down for all I'm worth when I'm using these. Just something the guy needs to think about. If we want to cover a little bit of the old part of the equation, so this is my 084. I put one on here to do some saw testing with it, and we talked about the flow bench testing. A lot of it was done with the 084 model to come up with the 58 cubic feet a minute. That's an 084 situation. They basically came with an element that was kind of like this style. It's the precursor to the HD2. There's a couple variations, but they're corrugated. I've seen multiple varieties over the years. These two are the same. On this particular filter base, we can see that it has a rubber gasket in here, which mates up with the sealing surface on the inside, and that's what provides the seal. Later on, they'd switch things out and put the sealing surface in the rubber backing of the element itself. This is pretty squishy right here. So that's just kind of a transition over the years of how things happened. I was kind of talking about the new versus old. The paperwork that I had looked at and shown didn't actually talk about the 661 version. They also make a Max Flow version for that particular saw as well. Okay, so we're going to take the Torque Monster air cleaner. This is a rain cover, this part right here. Continuing the saw again. Look at the cleaning aspect. Now you can see that that's pretty well used. It's not like we kind of sort of used it. We actually did use it. I always make sure that my choke lever is in the on position. That'll help prevent any debris from getting down in there. Now if we take a look inside, we were talking about being careful. You can see why I made that commentary. So we look at the back of it, it's pretty much centered, and yet we're offset just a fuzz. Thank God it's still sealing right over there, but like I was saying, a guy can't ever be too careful. Now normally what I would do would be to blow this off outside. So we're going to pause for a second while I do that. Okay, we knocked the heavy debris off outside, but I'm going to show you how I do it. I go sideways. I don't have it wide open. I have it partially open. I'm blowing it away from the inlet side, trying to knock the heavy stuff off without blowing it down into the element itself. I'm blowing it off to the side. And then once I get around on the sealing surface, I'm gently just blowing the heavy stuff away from the opening again. So just trying to knock the heavy duty bulk of the large chunks that have bound together with the oil. So then we'll take it apart. But I'm going to need this spot right here on the bench, so we're trading places. Now normally it's not quite like this, but for this purpose we're dealing with it like this situation tonight. I try not to let this get into contact with too much stuff. Back to that paper plate concept. And now we're using PJ1 air filter oil remover cleaner spray, they call it. You want to actually do this in a well ventilated area. Don't breathe the fumes, you won't like it. But it doesn't take a lot. This stuff is actually pretty impressive. Get it kind of saturated. I always try to work it down away from the inlet again. You can see it breaks up the oil pretty nicely. Now I've done it like this for a long time. Never found where it harms the foam filter, since it's foam filter oil and air filter, which we see the big foam piece right there. Fabric and foam. But the fumes of this stuff, it's pretty ugly actually. So once I kind of work it out like that, I just use I like warm water actually. Usually I try to get a bigger bucket, but it's the way it goes for this evening here. So I'm generally just trying to get rid of the cleaner in the water. You can see it does a pretty good job taking care of the process. So once I use my G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip on it, I hang it up and let it dry overnight. Very minimum. I usually try to be 2 days ahead technically. So if we take a look at the K&N concept, which we're going to get some air in here now. Because like I said, that stuff is like pretty impressive vapor-wise. Now, this particular air cleaner I've had for a long time, like a long time. It's a little beat up, but it's fine on the inside. And every time I run this saw I check it and verify that none of the little wires are broken on the inside. I don't use it much though. But since this is the fabric portion of the process, this is fine cotton, you can clean it the same way, however, with this cleaner from PJ1. I don't really use the air hose on these at all. If I'm doing that, it's super, super, super gentle. But generally, I try not to. So, same kind of a concept. Working it around a little bit. Always draining it with the open side where the air's coming out, down. You can basically whip it and get rid of a lot of the water. But again, same kind of a concept. I'll just hang it up somewhere warm and let it dry overnight. We can see that all the bark dust came out of in between the pleats, which is pretty sweet. Even where it's super tight in there, they're all gone, which is really nice. Again, I can't say enough about this combination. You can buy those retail in a combination pack. You're going to go through the filter oil faster than you're going to go through the cleaner, but you can buy them independently after that. So I think it's a little bit better deal if you buy them as a unit. And like I said, I've been running that particular filter oil since in the early 80s. Motorcycles, chainsaws, it hasn't really mattered. I've never found it to be a problem. I've only found that it works excellently. So there you go. And so one of the other things that I think I forgot to mention in this process, you want to dispose of this toxic waste vat in a proper fashion. That would be my suggestion as well. I think I kind of covered what I was trying to get at with this session here. I hope you found a little nugget of information that was new. I hope that the process was interesting. I do appreciate you taking the time to stop by and watch my small offerings in this YouTube experience. And so I'm hopeful that you're going to have a blessed day wherever you might be on God's green earth.